What? Completely random event? Completely changed your life? In college, I knocked on the wrong dorm room. Some dude opened up and asked if I was here to play cards. I said, yeah. I ended up meeting an amazing girl there. We've been together for 25 years. I came to work on my day off thinking I had my shift that day. However, because it was rush hour and they were understaffed, I stayed there for a few hours to help out. I ended up meeting a childhood friend of mine who left 15 years ago at the facility. We are now married and have children. My father cut his fingertip and developed a hematoma under his fingernail. The clot traveled to his brain and caused a stroke and heart attack. He turned into a vegetable. It turns out that little things like a cut fingernail can have such a big impact on a person's life and the lives of their loved ones. I applied, got in, and was accepted to the completely wrong college. I learned as much as I could about the place, went on campus tours of a college with a very similar name, but ended up accidentally applying to the wrong place. I ended up never getting into that first college I was going to. And it turned out to be the best mistake of my life. I met some amazing people, got to know a part of the state I never thought I would. And then I got a degree in a program that I didn't know existed. And yet, it was so interesting. I accidentally accepted a request to add as a friend from my now husband, thinking it was another acquaintance of mine with a similar name. I had ignored the request before. The rest is history. We have been married for 12 years and have 2 children. A water main broke at my house, and the contractors had to lay a new pipe from the street to the first floor. I had to clean it all up and then go get enough water for a week for a family of 4. I asked my bosses to let me off work in the afternoon so I could get it all done, but I was told they would file it as unexcused absenteeism. I was burned out because I had paid the company back hundreds of thousands of dollars that my predecessor had fucked up, and I had set up all their processes. I wasn't going to quit, but just to blow off steam, I started sending my resume to different companies. Eventually, I found a new job that paid me $30,000 more, gave me the opportunity to work from home, and gave me complete freedom in my schedule. I accidentally turned left instead of right when I suddenly noticed that the restaurant I liked had closed. I reopened it, and 35 years later, we are still in business. This incident changed my life, as well as the lives of my wife, my children, and 28 employees. I met up for coffee with a friend before he went to pitch a series in LA. He asked what I was doing, and I mentioned a comic I wanted to write. His pitch went well, and the studio asked if he had any science fiction ideas. He pitched them my idea. Within a month, I was in LA and talking to a bunch of agents and managers wanting to sign me. A good friend of mine was hit by a car and died. This incident gave me a new perspective on my life. I wondered, if I had been hit by a car and died, would I have been happy with the way my life had gone? The answer was no. So I sold everything I owned and moved across the country to New York City with 3 suitcases. It was the best decision of my life. I am so much happier now, met the love of my life, and my only regret is why I didn't do it sooner. I got into trouble while drunk as fuck. When I sobered up, I wrote a thank you letter to a man who was very nice to me and encouraged me to ask for help. This man was friends with the editor of the local newspaper. He thought my letter was written in very beautiful language. He asked if he could show the letter to the editor. I agreed, after which I forgot about it. A few months later, the editor came to me and offered me a part-time job. I've been working in journalism ever since. The pay is shit, but I love the job. When my brother was 17, he asked some random girl out on a date. They eventually started dating. He needed a job, and she helped him get a job at the company where her family worked. The next year, I needed a summer job, and they got me a job at the same company. I loved that company and continued to work there for a long time. I stayed there even after my brother broke up with that girl. At the age of 21, I was promoted and transferred to work in another state, 1,000 kilometers away from home. Can you imagine? My girlfriend, all my friends, my hobbies, everything that makes up my adult life is connected to that move. My life changed drastically simply because my brother dated some random girl for a year when we were teenagers. One time I was doing some heavy shit at night and the cops started chasing me. At one point, I even abandoned my car and started running. I ran from them for about an hour until the cops finally caught up to me and told me to stop running. The situation wasn't too serious, so they detained me and put me in rehab the following week. Up until that point, no one knew I was on substances, at least I thought no one knew. But now thinking back to that time, I think everyone knew. Once in rehab, I was done with all that shit and decided to go to university to get a college degree. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in math and am now working as an engineer. I'm also currently studying for a master's degree in computer science. If it wasn't for that day, I'd probably be a corpse by now. When I was younger, I had a neurological condition called hydrocephalus that required me to have a shunt placed in my brain to keep me alive. Every few years it would break or become infected and had to be replaced. About 20 years ago, I developed an infection that my neurosurgeon refused to take seriously. Because of this, I went undiagnosed for a long time. They didn't find out about the problem until 2 years later, when I ended up in intensive care. Thanks to faulty medical equipment that had strangely malfunctioned while I was waiting for surgery, we discovered that I was actually not using my shunt and no longer needed it. The surgery was canceled, and once the infection cleared, I was sent home. It was a really awful couple years, but in the end, those years gave me my life back. I have now been living without surgery for 15 years, and as much as I hate that difficult time, I wouldn't change a thing. Because if things had happened differently, I would have just had another brain surgery, then another, and so on. This incident dramatically changed not my life, but my neighbor's life. From the age of 7 to 13, I actively played American soccer with my neighbor, James, who was 2 years younger than me. One day, when I was 13, several of us neighborhood kids gathered outside James's house and waited for him to finish dinner and come out to us. James' dad, as I recall, was always the odd type, and I think he was sitting out of work at the time. Anyway, we stood outside and waited for their family to eat dinner. After a while, his father came outside. He came up to us three boys, started grumbling, and told us to get off the private property and that James wasn't going outside. Being the little asshole I am, I decided to be smart and told him it was a public sidewalk. Being the little asshole I am, I decided to be smart and told him it was a public sidewalk. Then he grabbed me by the neck, yanked me off my bike, and dragged me along the ground, then lifted me into the air by the throat and pinned me against the pickup truck in his garage. He muttered something to me, I don't remember what, and then tossed me to the ground like one would normally toss a bale of hay. Naturally, I went home, told my parents what had happened, and they called the police. About 4 hours later that night, around 10 o'clock, I saw through the window the cops handcuffing this guy and taking him away. James' mother filed for divorce and married a strength coach at a major college. I lost touch with the kid as my parents soon divorced as well, and I moved away. Eventually, that coach developed a program for James on iron lifting, other exercises, etc., and he eventually became the highest performing halfback to ever walk the hallways of his high school. He continued to perform outstandingly, becoming one of the best defensive backs in the country, and then moved on to the professional level. After the incident with his dad who assaulted me, the kid immediately skyrocketed to the top. In general, he's a good dude and fully deserves everything he's accomplished. I dropped my phone on the floor of my bed, and the screen along with the protective glass shattered into junk. It's strange, because I had dropped my phone from a higher height and at worse angles before, and the protective glass was dented, but the screen was intact. All in all, I was left without a phone, and I didn't have the money to get it fixed right away. None of my friends had an extra phone, so I asked on my then company's Slack chat if anyone had a spare phone I could borrow. Just a regular ringer, nothing fancy, and I'd be very grateful. It was also at that moment that I went through a terrible heartbreak. In addition to a broken phone, I was heartbroken. I was first deeply in love, and then dumped a second later. All in all, it was just a horrible time. One man responded to my request and offered his spare phone. I had no idea who he was or what he was doing at the company, although I had several coworker friends. We had never met him because we both worked remotely, and no one had ever mentioned him to me. Also, our departments were responsible for completely different things, so we never crossed paths with him. I was also a little confused as to why he was offering a phone to someone he didn't even know. It seemed to me that he was too trusting. Anyway, he sent me the phone by courier, and I ended up needing it for quite a while. I saved up money for a new cell phone for a few months, and then we finally met this guy in person. Long story short, a few years went by, and he became my best friend and then my boyfriend. For the first time in my life, I learned what healthy, unconditional love is. He is the epitome of love, which he never fails to give me. I grew up in an abusive household, so my idea of love and relationships was completely warped. I'm still in the process of changing my thinking. But with him, my heart is at peace. He is my biggest fan, and in hard times, he is a solid rock for me to lean on. There is no one who can compare to him. I don't know anyone who is as generous in love as he is. I remember that time and my feeling of devastation when not only my heart broke in the most unfortunate way, but my phone strangely broke from some slight fall, all within 1 week. I felt like such a failure for a long time. But now, looking back, I'm so glad my phone broke that day and my then boyfriend dumped me. Otherwise, I never would have met the love of my life. If you've had similar stories, be sure to share them in the comments and your story will make it into the next video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes.